Good morning and welcome to Legally Speaking with Attorney Antoinette Osborne. This program is for information purposes only. If you need legal advice, you can contact me, Antoinette Osborne, at 718-502-9137. You can also text your question this morning, or you may call into the live at 718-502-9137. You can also place your questions in the live this morning. I will respond. All right. So, good morning, Suzette. Morning, Amarildo. Good morning, Daphne. All right. So, this morning I want to focus on a topic that is quite, I would say, bothersome to a lot of us. And briefly, I want to discuss some issues that arise in landlord and tenant court. Please don't forget to like the live. Please don't forget to share the live. All right. So, for those of you who are going to be filing your cases, your court dates are not coming overnight. It takes some time once your petition is filed to get the court dates. In addition, when it comes to the pretrial conferences and the trial, I have waited 6 months, I have waited a year for a trial date. My recommendation would be to try and work it out with the tenants. I think the one of the few trial dates I got really quickly was because the tenant was such a liar, and the judge saw that this woman was really a liar. And instead of having to wait months, I think he set the trial date in like 2 to 3 weeks, right? So not everyone is going to be as lucky as that. For landlords, I am going to encourage you. Morning, Sandy, for landlords and Rosemary. I'm gonna encourage you, screen your tenants. And it's easier said than done, because every Sunday morning they would, people dress up on their best outfits to go to. The islands are really a church community. So you'd see people dressing up Sunday morning, putting out, it's called the Sunday best. And when your tenants come in, that's exactly how it is that they are going to approach you to rent your location. So, I'm going to give you some tips with regards to screening. Anyone who is taking someone into their home, especially when you live there, I think there are certain precautions that you have to take when you are taking your tenant. One, you have to check credit. You need, of course, an authorization from the tenant in order to check credit. You would be surprised. You have people who are even making six figures, but they just can't manage their bills. So checking credit is very important. You also have to do employment verification. If you can't take guidance from a bank who is giving out a loan, and even 3 days, I think they do it within like 3 days before that person moves in, that they actually verify their employment. You have to do your employment verification. People are home and they are getting job letters from their friends. They are making up pay stubs at their homes. So, what I'm going to encourage you to do, Google the employer, ensure that the information that the tenant has provided is in fact the correct information for their employer. I think, especially as island people, we're a very trusting society and we take people at their word. I have had from, and this is where you just cannot bank on sometimes their income, because you'd be surprised the level of positions that people have had that I have evicted. So, but I want you, and nothing is in a vacuum. You can't just do one and not do the other. You must do their employment verification. Another thing that I'm going to encourage you to do, get a reference from their landlord. Now, this could go both ways because when a landlord has a tenant from hell, they want to get rid of them. So you calling, it may be a catch 22 where they just provide you with a reference because it's that they want to shift the burden. So that could be a cautionary tale as well. But I'll tell you this, I had one landlord because he had such a horrible time with a tenant. He actually went to the applicant's current resident to speak to their current landlord. And in having a conversation, it became such, there was such a comfort level between the both of them that the landlord confessed and he was like, because of what you've told me and the horrible experience that you have had with your tenant, I'm going to tell you this lady is a tenant from hell. And the landlord had to thank him because just coming out of a situation where your tenant was a tenant from hell. And we're very grateful. I think you should check references as well. I think you should possibly go and see if this is a time where the tenant has power in New York. I think, and some people may not want to go to this extreme, but I would like to see how you're keeping your current location. I think it is Rochdale. I remember when my girlfriend was trying to get in, I think they used to do site visits, and there is a method behind that because they're coming into your place. So you want to ensure that you're not going to get someone in your place that is going to destroy your property. In terms of some landlords like to see who is going to be residing in their place. Why? Because the tenant may be pristine, but the person who is accompanying the tenants is a nightmare. So, and some landlords will check everyone. They will check the background on everyone. You've had decent parents coming into their place, and then all of a sudden the adult child comes. When the adult child comes, it's despite the lease saying no smoking, they're smoking, they have their animals in your place if you do not allow pets. So I think anyone who is taking in someone into your property, you should really do a very stringent verification of the records that they provide. I think you should do an investigation, collecting social security numbers. All right. You have to think, some people think best case scenario. You can't when you are taking a tenant in, especially in New York City. You have to rent with a worst case scenario in mind. You need that social security number because if that tenant should leave and owe you rent, and if you do a holdover proceedings and you're going to go to civil court to get a judgment, ultimately you are turning over your judgment to the marshal. So you need the marshal to have the proper information to equip them to garnish wages or to execute on that judgment so that you are able to collect monies that are owed to you, right? So you have to be prudent in taking in anyone into your home. It is, I have had clients where it wasn't the tenant, but the children. Anyway, they ended up burning down my client's four-story building. I have had clients that have been stabbed. I have had clients who have, and the tenant is not removed from the home because you occupy separate units. So your recourse is to go to landlord and tenant court. It's different if they actually occupy the same space with you. So you have to be, I think you have to be so cautious in taking in someone into your property. Yeah. I would anticipate a reference from the landlord is so crucial. And I am going to encourage you to get that, get IDs and get IDs and social security numbers for everyone who is going to be occupying that property. Do not take it lightly. If you're just tuning in, welcome. You are tuning in to Legally Speaking with attorney Antoinette Osborne. We are here live every Sunday, generally at 9 or thereabouts. So I am this morning just providing information to empower yourself, just to protect yourself when you are renting. We are having a housing crisis and the rents have skyrocketed. And even buying my office in Jamaica, I'm sorry, that is not the best of neighborhoods. And I'll tell you this, just down the road, I think the studios are going for 2000 plus. It's amazing to me that gentrification causes the rents and the house prices to skyrocket. It is what it is. But in any event, I have had landlords who are not going to be renting. They have locked up their, because some of them have had their homes for years, so they can't afford to do this. They have just locked up their homes. They are not renting. They or And especially if you rent a basement and the tenant has decided to report you, some people have just completely locked down their basement, especially when, we have flooding issues. It really can get dangerous. But I'm going to encourage you, you have to screen. It is, I think it's a little bit easier to get rid of a tenant in the suburbs, but the property taxes in the suburbs is not very affordable for the everyday person. But if even in the city, it's like you have high prices for the house, lower property taxes. In the suburbs, it is a higher tax value. It's more single family homes because they're trying to get families in the suburbs. But at the end of the day, no matter what, you still have a mortgage to pay. And you're taking someone into your property, I am so going to encourage you, screen. You have to screen. It is difficult to take in someone and they are they're at a position where they don't want to pay, or it is that they are destroying your property. It's tough. And just to even evict them, it proves difficult in New York City. So let me see, Frankie and what is this, John Golden Doodles. Good morning. Legally, do you help with probate or anything that does work something to do with a house? Or well, yes, we do estate matters. And if you have questions, Frankie, you will have to call and speak in the live. If you're calling the office, you are going to pay a consultation fee in the week. Let me see, Amarilda. Oh, Amarilda is telling everyone to like the like button. And Ronald says some tenants burn down the house to spite. And it's true. They, I, the relationship, right, can break down where you're at a point where you're in that property and you completely dislike each other. So there is absolutely no mercy for the landlord where both parties completely dislike each other. Yeah. And I've had tenants who are constantly calling the police on the landlord. The police will in turn to the landlord and say, you know, you need to take them to housing court. If it's just like an abuse of the system now. But in renting, it's difficult because no matter how you believe you are getting a good tenant, you have people who for the first 1 or 2 or 3 years they're great, they're fantastic. However, come the fourth, fifth year, especially when COVID came in, this is where abuse really set in, and I'll show you how. You had tenants who were working with big, I know of one in particular, big entertainment companies, making high six figures, but you got that luxury where some people were just filing fake affidavit of hardships. There was no loss in income to the tenant or to anyone in their household who helped them. Then the affidavit of hardship stopped, right? The governor said, okay, can't file that anymore. So you move to ERAP. So you had people who are not qualified for ERAP, but what ERAP did was to put a stay on the proceedings because you have to wait until the state makes a determination on the ERAP application. Sometimes that could take 6 months, going up to a year, and you were stuck with this tenant in that you could not move, you couldn't look to evict them until I think finally we were allowed to file motions, or you just have to find a loophole. You know, for example, the person wasn't a tenant, they were like a licensee because they got permission to come into the house. They weren't paying rent. So they were just there at the owner's permission. So they had a license to stay there. And they just would not leave. And unfortunately, this is where you find out a lot of people, they're not helping people no more. Why? Because it becomes ridiculous where you are trying to help someone yet still you're taking advantage of them. So you have welcomed someone into your home and they have decided they are going to be a complete nightmare for you. And they, all right, let me explain something to you. Because some people don't have a conscience, right? Probably they were born with it, but they've never exercised it. If someone out of the goodness of their heart welcomes you into their home and you're working, if it's you're staying, a 2 weeks, all right. But where it is that you have that time has extended because whatever your circumstances, and you're living in that house, and your friend or family member, they have bills to pay. I think good conscience is going to command that you make an offer, all right, so I'm staying here. Initially, I thought it was going to be 2 weeks, you have to apologize for imposing on their privacy, as when someone welcomes you into their place, you are in fact interrupting their privacy. I think good conscience would command that you contribute something. Let them tell you no. Save your money to leave. Because some people will tell you that. They want you to get back on your feet. I had a client, she said that one of her friends contacted her The entire family, and this is a woman who I think she was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And her, and I've never heard this, and this is where on Sundays, I try to warn you. But before going into her relationship, her boyfriend told her, don't get sick. Everything is gonna be great, but don't get sick. So what happens? Life happens. Then life happening, she got stage 4 cancer. And you're probably in that house trying to hide it, but you're getting sicker every day. So she got put out. Because he told her. And this is why you have to appreciate people's honesty. And I think when people are honest to you, with you, you have to really take time to go over what they have told you. He was upfront. He told her, don't get sick. But she got sick. So he puts her out. And she's scrambling. Yeah? Her family would not take her in. But my client took her in. And when she came in, it was, I'm just gonna stay here until I could get a place. Our client is extremely kind-hearted, and I think that is why she's so blessed. The woman got sicker, and the 2 weeks turned into months. And of course, she could not work, and her resources were limited. And my client was kind enough to let her stay there until she ended up, I believe, in a nursing home. That person's situation is different from someone who is staying in your home, able-bodied people who are working. If someone exercises good conscience to allow you to stay in their home, I am going to encourage you. Contribute something. People have live bills, yeah? All right, so I wanna go over a few things, yeah, this morning. So Suzette says, happened to my brother, let's see, in-law rented a skettle. For those of you who may be non-Jamaicans and don't know what a skettle is, really it's just like a vagabond. And she brought people to fight him. She called the police so often that the cops knew her. Good thing he had a ring camera. And what is this? She taunted my niece. Yeah, thank goodness it's over, right? Her own family didn't want to house her. Yeah. So, yeah. It's tough out there, right? So landlords who now are collecting rent, have your rent book. If you carry a tenant to court and you don't have your documentary proof, as you're supposed to be giving receipts, you're not gonna get your rent. The rules change. Have your rent book. And there's a catch-22 now, because let's say you have an illegal unit and you are renting a basement, an attic, a room. If you lose your mind and give a receipt so that your tenant can take that to the Department of Building, that they are in fact renting this space, get ready. Yeah? Legal units, ensure that you are providing receipts. If someone is paying you, make sure you provide your receipts. You should be very specific in terms of the payments. that you have received, right? So you have to know the exact dollar amount that is due for arrears, because the case can get dismissed. So here it is, because of you not following the proper channels. Yeah, you know the person owe you, but you weren't keeping accurate records as to the amount of money that is owed. So now your case gets dismissed and your tenant gets to stay. And you have to start your proceedings again. Why? You can't amend your notice. It's not amendable. So just be very careful. I'm going to encourage you, keep your records when they are paying you. Have your rent receipt book. You can get one at Staples. You can get a rent receipt book from any stationery store. You can even order this online. You must keep your receipt book and make sure that you are describing the apartment for the property that is being rented. Spell out the tenant's name, right? If someone else is paying for that tenant, you can make a little note on your receipt where you make it out to the tenant's name. That's fine, right? Because you know it is for that tenant. Now, here's a difficulty. If it is that a tenant came into your property and they brought someone in that property, that person is what is referred to as an under tenant of that tenant. You don't have no relationship with them. So if your tenant moves out and you do not want to create a landlord and tenant relationship with them, and I'll tell you the difference. When you create a landlord and tenant relationship, depending on how long they live at your premises, controls the amount of notice that they are able to receive. So if it is that someone is residing in your property for less than a year, they get a 30-day notice. If they are in your property for over 1 year, but less than 2 years, they get a 60-day notice. And if they are in your property for more than 2 years, and the time period I'm giving you for the notice are for a holdover proceedings. Once they're in your property for more than 2 years, they must be given a 90-day notice. So you have to be very careful. If it is that you know the person that is in the property, you don't want to have a relationship with them. You don't take money from them. You can serve them a notice to quit as a licensee, which is a 10-day notice. You see the difference? So your notice period goes by the relationship that you have with the person in your property. Yeah. All right. So let me take a look at the live. Ronald says United States money is the safest way to pay your rent. I'm going to defer on that. Why? I would encourage anyone to use your bank account. And the reason is when you need proof, you can't walk with the stubs to court to say you have paid. You have to actually reach out to the post office to get proof that that money order was cash. The fact that you have the stub is not good enough. The safest way is when it goes through your bank account. Because guess what? You can get this transaction where you can go to the bank, you can get your bank statements to prove without the hassle of having to wait on, let's say, the post office or MoneyGram or Western Union, where there's actually a cost as well to get proof that the money orders were cash. My recommendation, pay through your bank account. Zelle it. I think your Cash App, once it's tied to your bank account, you can write a check, and let's hope those checks aren't rubber. I think me personally, I may just have to stop taking checks. I can't understand how some of my clients' checks are made with rubber. Yeah. So I think I'm gonna start putting in my retainer, paying with a bounce check. Our relationship is terminated immediately after. You know, I can't even conceive. I'm telling you, some come from the village people. I can't conceive going to someone and writing a bounce check. I can't understand where you intend. It's actually a crime in New York where you intentionally give a check knowing that you don't have the monies to do it. You know that there's no monies to cash this. Be very careful, but getting proof from your bank is easier. And it's the same I tell my clients who are paying child support. Pay it through your bank account. Yeah? Makes absolutely no sense. I remember once I was in child support court, and our clients were from, I think, Central America. Yeah, it was from Central America. Very nice guy, hardworking, respectable, decent man. And there was, when my assistant, she was translating outside of court for me. And then, of course, when you go into court, you get the translator. So he's listening to her because she's saying he hasn't paid. And I look at him, and people from Central America come like island people, right? Immigrants generally, we wear our heart on our sleeves. So our facial expression shows everything, because it's like he wanted to die the lies. And when he had come with the money orders, I had sent him and I never knew which devil. Because when my clients come in, I don't know which devil they're going to carry me to court to meet. But you have to be ready. And he said, she filed this application, I don't understand. And he carried the stubs. And I said, this means nothing to me. I think he had used MoneyGram or Western Union. I said, go and get me proof that these were cashed. And it takes time. You don't get this overnight. So by the court date, I was ready for her. Yeah, because this is a man who, and some women wish they could get responsible men like this. The man no miss no payment, no time. So whilst he's there dying, I'm quite calm. Come on, watch she sing. Yeah? I remember she a swear under penalty of perjury. Sing, girl, sing. Yeah. Choir leader soon talk. Sing, girl, sing. Come I gotta tell you whether you make it or not. So of course, the way how she go on and she's so expressive. The magistrate was quite annoyed at my client to think that you have all these kids and this poor woman is struggling. My time now, don't. Yeah. Ready? Yeah. Some just take out all the proof. So now, obviously, the woman has no credibility. Can me tell you, say the man no miss? Yeah? All right. Then she'll come with another argument, say X amount. Oh, the magistrate say, look here. Any arrears that you're claiming, I'm reducing it to 0. Yeah, you're not credible, girl. And the purpose me I'm telling you this is keeping the records, keeping the proof, but make it easier. But even though he had to go to MoneyGram and wait and get his proof, he had it. I'm going to encourage you, especially when you have an obligation to pay someone. I don't care if it's your friend. Your friends are your worst enemies. Put down proof that you have repaid your debt in full. Yeah? So, for those of you who are collecting your rents legally, emphasis is on legal because I think it would be someone who is very unwise, knowing that they are renting an illegal apartment, to solidify this in documentary proof where your tenant can run down to building department on you. All right, so for those who are seeking to get out your tenant, some people like non-payment. So there are certain steps. Yeah, the landlord first have to serve a 5-day notice, and then you move and serve a 14-day notice, unless of course your lease, and you have to, don't just buy your leases from the stationery store and don't read them, because sometimes your leases may require a longer notice period. And after serving these 2 notices, it's only then that you are allowed to go into court, file your petition to get back your monies. Yeah? The non-payment is a faster way to get a court date. But what you have to realize with a non-payment proceedings, I don't care how you hate the tenant. You see, as long as your tenant pays that money, they get to stay. And that's why a lot of people choose the holdover option. Yeah. And for those of you who are in your lease is still valid. You have to understand your lease is a contract, and they have to breach that contract in order to be evicted. So when you're still in your lease, you can't just do a holdover proceedings like that unless you're doing it pursuant to the terms of your lease. So when your lease period is finished, yeah, this is where you can now, dependent on the time period that they are in your property, you serve them the holdover notice, right? Now, so one of the saddest things with a non-payment, and some landlords, they don't mind the tenant. So they'll do the non-payment because the tenant is a good tenant. The tenant, in all actuality, they keep their premises in a very good condition. So they don't mind them. Them just want their money. Some people not in a no long argument. Just give me my money. And that's it. You know, they are not going to be in any sort of long discourse with you. All they want is their rent. You know, I have a client from the Philippines, and I guess he was passing somebody's house and he took a picture, and I said, Lord, I thought this, me think only Jamaicans do this. Above the tenant's door is a big sign that reads, these people are living in my basement and are not paying me rent. So anybody who drives past the house will be able to see that. Yeah, it is what it is. So let me see what Suzette is saying. Suzette says New York State, but downstate New York is too many people to prosecute. That's why the bank just charge a bounce check fee. Yeah, it's crazy. Renault says tenants who don't like rules should live in an apartment building or the projects. So Suzette is asking, suppose you signed a year lease and you found a house you want to buy. How can you terminate that lease? All right. So in order to terminate, you need to have a discussion with your landlord. Back in the day before the rules changed, the landlord could just let that place sit for the remainder of the lease and charge you. They never had to mitigate. Now the rules have changed. The landlord is now required to go and seek if he can get a replacement tenant, right? So, but you may have that spiteful person where they show everybody who comes to rent is not a viable option for them. Probably the credit, probably they couldn't get a reference from the prior landlord. So here it is, the landlord is appearing to make a good faith attempt to get a tenant, and he can't find it because some people know say you have the money to pay them, so they just appear to be seeking a tenant, right? But then that liability still lies with you because he is mitigating but can't find a good tenant. So what am I gonna encourage you to do? Reach out to your landlord and see if he will accept a surrender of your lease. If your landlord accepts a surrender, make sure that this is in the form of a written document releasing you from any future liability for rent. And then you and the landlord can negotiate concerning the security deposit. Yeah. So I am telling you, this landlord and tenant it's not the easiest of things. All right, so a text message came in. Let me just see if I can get to that text message. All right, so let's see here. All right. So Sandra Turner says, "Good morning, Miss Osborne. My kids want to file an I-130 for their dad and younger brother, but dad is about to get married and they don't want to file for his new wife. Does it make sense for them to start the paperwork, leaving off the soon-to-be wife?" I'll tell you this. The child, of course, who's filing for the father is a U.S. citizen. The wife is, because the father is an immediate relative, he does not get derivatives. So the wife is named, but she's not coming with the father. The father, in turn, has to come, get the green card, and then he can file for his wife. So the fact that the father marries and the son or daughter files an application, there are no derivatives. So the father's children are not coming on his application, and neither is the new wife. So when the father gets here, the father in turn files for the kids and files for the wife, because the father is in a category known as an immediate relative. So he does not get derivatives, and separate applications would have to be made. I would not recommend, if the parent is coming, that the sibling should file for the other siblings. It goes a little bit faster when the parent comes and then the parent files for the sibling. Because if you, as a sibling, file for another sibling being, of course, brother or sister, you're looking at 15 years plus. Whilst when the parent comes, yeah, because the parent should be here within a year and a half. But I have had people at the embassy. I don't know what the hell is going on with the embassy in Kingston and giving dates. I don't know. But I will let you know this. That wife is not coming on their dad's application. Dad has to come, file for wife, and for the siblings, let dad come and file for the siblings. It goes faster. All right, so someone texted good morning. All right, so just tuning in. Don't forget to like the live. Don't forget to share the live. This morning, boy, we are talking about evicting a tenant and the crosses that comes with it. Yeah, it's not easy to evict a tenant in New York City. I find it a little bit easier in the suburbs. Yeah, they don't play. Yeah, man, because it is clear that your mortgage in the suburbs, I don't know if it's a more principled set of people that live in the suburbs, and you're not paying, you need to leave. Whereas New York City is just so open to the madness, but then it doesn't look good, I believe, on our politicians, where we have this huge housing crisis and people have nowhere to live. So, as one judge told my client, you took a risk when you bought this two family. Unfortunately, your risk is not paying off because your tenant is not paying. Yeah. But they're not going to really be urging. I don't find in New York City there is any urgency in getting rid of someone who is in the property, destroying it, or not paying your rent. There's no urgency here. Yeah. All right. Now, non-payments, bear in mind, your tenant turn up with the money, they're getting to stay. So they owe you back a few more months. That's a new proceedings. And that's why some people, they just can't be bothered, because it costs the landlord to evict. And that is the reality. It does cost. It's not cheap to evict a tenant. And where these proceedings are long-winded, yeah, you have landlords just struggling to keep afloat. I'll never forget this one tenant. I was in Brooklyn. So Brooklyn people, what's anyway. I'll never forget it. He said to my client, look by you, buy 3 family house and can't maintain it. Probably he's not maintaining it because you're not paying your rent, sir. Sir. For landlords, you can only get your legal fees now if your lease provides for it. Yeah. But if the tenant win you, the tenant can get their legal fees. Catch 22. Yeah. All right. What can the landlord do to protect themselves? I don't know. I think you just screen. Try screen. You really have to screen. Yeah, you really do. All right. Your lease ends and the tenant is still in the place, right? And you're collecting rent. So the tenant is holding over. So your landlord and tenant relationship does not end because your lease often will provide you're holding over on the same terms. And if it didn't provide that, by you collecting monies and you're using the same pattern as you did in your lease, you have now created a new month-to-month tenancy arrangement. Yeah. What I would encourage any landlord to do, and this is not going to work if you have a program tenant. This is someone coming off the street to rent your place. You don't know them. You really don't know their pattern. It's something I've said to my clients. Tell them initially you don't give leases. You need to see their rental payment history, not their past rental payment history. You need to see their payment history with you. You need to see how they take care of your place. And then after a year, this determines whether or not you'll give them a lease. Because imagine taking someone into your place. Let's get real now. Brother, I don't know you from nowhere, right? Me I take you in my place. You're in a lease. We can't just evict in a holdover. I have to follow the terms of my lease. So it's like me I ride out the year. Me not want to have them serious relationship with you. I mean, I know you. I want to think like it's nearly like a relationship, like you just start date. So no feelings no catch. So me not gear no lease rasta. You a watch me, me a watch you. And come see say nah work out. Yeah man, we're gonna have a conversation. Treat your relationships with a tenant like that. Cause if you date somebody and no feelings a catch, you can have a conversation that this it nah go work. Simple. Simple. So with the tenant now, because them just come in and them in an lease, you can immediately do a holdover proceedings to try to get them out. Yeah. No feelings, no catch rasta. All right, this other thing there. All right. So Suzette says more poor people in the 5 boroughs and housing is scarce. Westchester moves fast. Within 6 months, a tenant will be evicted. Yeah, I find Westchester, Nassau, they are getting you out. Houses are $1 million, or what is this? Better in the good neighborhoods. Yeah, it's not cheap. It's not cheap. And I find that landlords are completely frustrated now. Yeah. And especially with my client where his building was burnt down. Because he that findeth wife findeth a good thing. Some man not find nightmare. Don't get me in your problems though. Am I your mother? But he has an excellent wife. And when I tell you, she is screening to ensure, because what they went through the last time, they can't do it again. And what's most annoying to me was for the tenant who burnt down the building, make the building catch fire, yeah? But sometimes you have to thank God, because right now my client in a brand new building, because the insurance have to fix it. Make your insurance payments. We were already in eviction proceedings because I was looking to get rid of her. She was a nightmare. And you know what's sad? She wasn't a nightmare. Is our 4 strapping, steering, picnic them who don't work. Can have 4 grown men in your place. This could have never worked with my father, Rasta. You have 4 grown men and they're not working. How are we turning our men into respectable people in society? How are they supposed to move forward, date your daughters, yeah, become responsible fathers and mothers? This is where I'm going to encourage you: do not run these men who probably want the man, yeah, but ensure that they have a relationship with their children. I see no joy when these women are preventing their boys especially. I'll tell you what happens when there's this disjoint, yeah, in your homes. Your son grows up and he doesn't know how to be a father. Let's get real. You're a woman. Are you going to teach him how to be a man? I know society is changing now, and one of my clients, it's such a new age. and everybody gets to claim their own gender. And he saw a group of women standing, and you're at the head of the institution. That's your position. So, of course, you are going to be respectful. You pass them, yeah? And his thing was, hello, ladies. Because what he's seeing, they're all women in front of him. And he said one of them turned to him and they were like, how do you know we're ladies? Backside. So he has now resolved himself. When he passes grown folks in his institution, hello, people, just to be safe and to be neutral. When you're passing students, you cannot say, hello, young lady, or hello, young man. In addressing, you have to say student. This is the age we are living in. And this is why it's hard for me to mix with the general population. Yeah, this is the age. This is what is happening in society. No, sir, we can't do this. We're done. It's what? No, sir. We're done. But this is where we're at as a society. So let's get back to our regular programming. With your landlord and tenant cases, you're in the city, deeds aren't coming quickly. You're in the suburbs, 1, 2, 3. Yeah? The different procedures when you after you serve your holdover notice, then you're moving to get your date by filing your court documents to get you in court. Now, what you have to understand, and this is why this morning I'm encouraging you to screen. What you have to understand is simply this. Your first court appearance, that's really for the tenant. So after you've waited months to get your date, for New York City, I haven't been out in the suburbs in a while, but for New York City, the first date is for the tenant. So the tenant can have the ability to speak to an attorney. And if they qualify, they get appointed an attorney. So nothing gets done. And this is something I explain to my clients. It's a first court date. Nothing is going to get done other than appointing your tenant an attorney. And I remember, I think this happened in the Bronx. I think Brooklyn was it? Bronx people was ya. Anyway, so my tenant was so frustrated. And we got a far date. And I said to the court attorney, is it possible to get it earlier? No! Whoop. I'm sorry, it wasn't the court attorney, it was a clerk. Yeah. You take what you're given. Nobody don't want to hear your problem and the stress that you are going through in your property with these tenants. Nobody cares. Follow the process. You're in the process. You have started. You have to follow the channel. It is what it is. All right. So we are at the end of the programming. I have taken up an hour of your Sunday. Thank you for joining us. We are here next Sunday, To make an appointment with the office, you can call 718-502-9137. Have a blessed Sunday and a prosperous week. Just a reminder, the COVID numbers are high. Protect yourself. Yeah. All right. Take care. Bye.